Oh, look, it matches my suit. This is a reef ball. This is the invention of Todd Barber. He lives in Florida, and he has come up to British Columbia, to Sydney, in fact, where they have launched a project of, well, how do you say it, rehabilitating dead reefs.
Yeah, we call it the restoration of reefs, actually bringing them back where either they weren't originally or whether we places where we've damaged them when we need new reefs.
So the case of Sydney, BC, this is not Sydney, Nova Scotia, but is not, you're not fixing up a damaged reef, are you?
And this was a little different. We had the community was building a fishing pier, and they needed a place to have crabbing and fishing and things like that on
Attract the little creatures.
Right. There was nothing there. It was just a sand bottom.
Yes.
So we actually created a reef where there wasn't a reef by putting the reef balls down in the area.
Now, you're not a marine biologist or a marine, that is not your field of expertise in the beginning?
That's not where I started. Actually, I was a management consultant and got into this thing from a lifelong hobby of scuba diving and an interest in marine sciences.
So you knew how to set up business properly. It wasn't just some sort of idea of a computer nerd sitting there, and but you knew the practical ways to get this started.
That's right. And actually, I got together 27 of my best friends from college and all different types of marine biologists to professors, and we all got together. And I did the marketing, the business end of it, but we have lots of other people that really helped us with the design. So it's, although the concept was originally mine and my father's, it was really a group think, and it took many years to evolve. So
the idea was, I want to do something to refurbish, rehabilitate reefs. Where did you see one first that was a mess?
Well, I started out diving when I was 15, and our family would take vacations to the Cayman Islands, and I would go snorkeling. Every year we'd go back, I'd take a little picture of this exact same coral. I'd always heard that corals grew really slowly, and I wanted to see how fast they would grow. Well, one year I went back after Hurricane Gilbert had been through, and it actually had wiped out my favorite little reef, and so that was what originally kind of started the whole idea.
And you thought, you got to fix this.
This was a problem. This was a real problem. Plus, I had been diving in the Keys all throughout my college career and began to see the decline. And being one of the very first divers, there weren't a whole lot of us back then, the average person didn't see the decline. I mean, if you burn a forest down, everybody sees that. It's visual. But underwater, I was one of the few people that were watching this happen over time.
Yes.
And
bad in the Philippines, too.
Oh.
Decimated in the Philippines.
Yeah, spent a lot of time there this year. We're getting ready to work on almost 1 million reef balls there.
A million?
To restore them.
How do you get 1 million reef balls out to the Philippines?
Well, the process, actually, we provide molds, and we train local people how to build them and deploy them themselves. It wouldn't be possible to ship 1 million over there. And that's the way it helps the local economy. It helps, for example, displaced fishermen. Now they can go into this, building and restoring and learning where the reefs are. And then they also learn how to protect them more when they have to spend time to build them. So
they don't have to say, if I can't take these tropical fish by blowing up the reefs, because that's what happens a lot of the time, isn't it?
That's one of the techniques they've used. Actually, the tropical fish collection is done with cyanide. They use the dynamite to blow up fish to get it for food when they just drop it down.
Right, cyanide.
Cyanide. They squirt a little bit in the water and it stuns the fish, and they can collect them and sell them into our tropical aquarium.
And what does it do to the reef, to the living reef?
Well, obviously you can imagine, but it will kill the reef itself almost immediately. And then, of course, coral reefs, because they're so growing. In fact, that photograph I was taking over the years had only grown about 1.5 inches over 15 years. So, you know, once it's dead, it's gone for good. Right.
So what do? Leave it there?
Well, they leave it there. What we have to do is go back in and, first of all, find out what the problems are and fix the water column. In other words, they can't continue to put cyanide in the water, or else nothing will ever grow again. Or if it's a fertilizer runoff or a pollution problem, we've got to solve those problems first. That's why my company, you know, mostly we try to protect natural reefs to start out with, because it's a lot easier to protect a reef than it is to build a new one.
Of course.
After that, once we get the water quality back to the appropriate levels, then we can put the reef balls in, which are specifically designed to allow the corals to settle on them and grow and restart and repopulate.
Well, I'll ask you to stick around me, and I want you to tell me, this is heavier this is heavy. So find out how we make these things, and out of what, and so on. Concrete, yes, but not just. That's no wonder when I saw a picture. This is a reef ball invented by Todd Barber, among others. Now, this is not just ordinary concrete that you'd walk on in the street.
No, well, we start with an ordinary concrete, but we have to add some things to make it suitable for marine life.
What?
We put something called Force 10,000 microsilica in it, which locks up some of the chemicals and creates a pH-neutral concrete. Basically makes it inert, almost like a rock, instead of normal concrete, which would leach out higher.
Yeah, you don't want
pH.
any leaching.
Right. You want it to be neutral and just basically nothing there that's going to go back into the water.
And we have some pictures of what it looks like after it's been down there for a while. And this is the one in Sydney, I think. And if we just take a look at this. Now, how long has this been covered up?
This is about a year's worth of growth.
Really and truly.
In a northern area. It's truly spectacular growth. Just last weekend I was able to get out there and dive it, and the colors are so vibrant it's kind of hard to catch it here on this type of film. You have to be down there, but the amount of life on it is just fantastic. The diving in British Columbia is just wonderful.
Look at that guy's coming for you.
There he is. Look out.
Cue the crab. That was very good. Now, the design of these is very specific. It isn't just any old lump. It isn't just any old hole. These are particularly designed. And how are they? Heavy on the bottom?
Yeah, we designed it for a lot of different criteria, using the scientists at a lot of different universities. First of all, they had to be able to withstand storms and hurricanes, because if they move around, that's going to kill the coral. So it had to be heavy at the bottom, had to have this hole at the top so that the waves would break over it and it would break up the lifting forces.
Right, so it wouldn't move it?
Wouldn't move.
So could it not leach and endure?
And endure. The concrete's designed to last more than 500 years, because you're starting the base of a reef, which is going to continue to grow from now on, so it's got to stay there.
So it doesn't matter if it disintegrates in 500 years, because the bedrock,
then there's a reef
will be there.
around.
Yeah.
Right. And then we had to have these special vortex holes which create swirling patterns around it. Corals are fixed animals that live on the reef, and they have to be able to feed with the stuff that goes through the water.
Comes to them.
Right,
yeah.
And that helps swirl it and create whirlpools. And then we have a real rough surface texture with grooves in it, because when a coral settles onto the reef, it doesn't have any protection yet. It has to start to secrete its calcium carbonate to grow a skeleton. Well, it needs a couple of months of growing, otherwise the fish will eat it right off. So it needs a little groove or nook and cranny to hide it.
And there are lots of them in here.
And there's lots of them. You can't really see it on the model size, but on the larger size we have the aggregate exposed. We put sugar water on the inside of the molds, and then we rinse off the concrete, and it leaves just the rock sticking out, so you get all kind of different kind of shapes.
And you also, the bigger ones, you put a bubble inside, some sort of balloon?
The bladder we put inside is so that we can float them out to sea. In a lot of countries we don't have barges and cranes and things. We have to literally just take it down a boat ramp or roll it down a beach. So when you put this bladder inside, the whole unit will float, and you can tow it out behind any size boat, or you can even swim it out, and then you deflate the bladder, remove it, and it drops to the bottom. So you can actually put a 6,000-pound unit down without any cranes or lifting equipment, which is really important in a lot of developing countries.
Yeah. And the biggest one you've ever made?
Gosh, there's been a lot of different ones in South Carolina. We've got 2,000 or 3,000 down. We've got 40,000 reef balls down throughout the world.
40,000?
Yeah, we've got about 300 projects
Who pays
worldwide.
for them?
It's typically governments, but oftentimes it's scuba clubs, fishing clubs, and a lot of what we do is volunteer. We have a separate company which is a nonprofit foundation which basically will provide free molds to any group that wants to build and deploy these things themselves. And a lot of times, even though it's smaller, like in Sydney, that was through the foundation, the community got together, they built them themselves, they put them in themselves, so there was really no cost. It was really just all community funded. Well,
it's a great idea. So you're down in the water a lot of times, and I suppose you've read it because George thought it was cute to play Jaws while we were waiting. You see them, I'll bet, don't you?
Yeah, the most interesting experience I had with one is I learned that sharks don't have backbones when I grabbed the tail of one while it was moving forward.
You learned that, did you?
And it came right back around just right at me, and ever since then I've had a lot of respect for them.
And it was still going forward, of course.
It was still going forward, and it actually went completely 180 degrees and then back forward. I couldn't believe it could do it.
Well, that's because they're not made of this stuff.
That's right.
They're made of cartilage, say.
Yes,
if we had more than that, we could actually touch our toes without going through agony. So, any plans for more reef balls in Canada?
Yeah, there's experiments going on right now in Newfoundland trying to figure out ways to use reef balls to bring clawed lobsters to the area. And the Sydney folks we had a meeting with yesterday, and the whole fisheries department is so excited about how that's worked. They want to replicate that project throughout the country at various fishing piers and areas around the country.
Well, it's nice to know that the fisheries department is excited about something, I have to say. Because it's been a rough ride for all concerned. All fishery in this country has been, having
tough.
a rough time.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. It's great to meet you. Congratulations, and you should get a prize.